So Andrew should be the first one pinned. Where is she? Oh. Start everybody front to back house. Are you on mic? This is so exciting. I never have a wireless mic. I'm like dancing tonight. Cool. Thank you for coming. My name is Fiona. I organize a series called Hard to Read. We put on events here once a month, sometimes twice a month. Also events at Echo's Lada's store where I stock books. Tonight we're hearing from 6 special readers on the theme of Masculinity of Valentine, which was conceived when we hosted a orphans-themed reading over the holidays, and we realized that of the 100+ people that I've hosted in the last year and a bit, very, very few of them are male-identified. So we're like, we'll have a reading all on masculinity where we present and reflect and dissect and whatnot. So I'm gonna do very brief intros of everybody, because we have 6 people tonight, which is a good full house. Thank you all for coming. Yeah. All right. So, our first reader tonight will be Andrew Berardini. Where is he? Andrew is an American writer known for his work as a visual art critic and curator in Los Angeles. He is also a father. Oh man, I wrote 2 different bios for Andrew. I was reading the wrong one. We'll read both of them. Andrew is an American writer known for his work as a visual art critic and curator in Los Angeles. He's also a father of a cool daughter, and since I have daddy issues, who doesn't, I asked him to read on fatherhood, and he graciously agreed. That's the one that I wrote. Then Andrew sent a proper one, so here's Andrew's. Andrew is an LA-based, California-born writer and father. He's the father of Stella, to be exact. Andrew likes to write quasi-essayistic prose poems about art and other sensual subjects for publications like Artforum and Spike. He's also occasionally an editor and curator with past exhibitions at MoCA and Palais de Tokyo, and a new one in Mexico City for the second Lulennial. Is that how you say it? Sure. Lulennial, called a low-hanging fruit with a catalog from Moose. Andrew is currently finishing a book about color and another about how to be an unprofessional artist. He graciously agreed to write and read tonight on fatherhood. I have a really bad habit of talking really fast because I'm terrified of taking up people's time and space, and I'm trying really hard to speak slower because I've heard that that's a power move, and I'm trying to be more powerful. So,
you did great.
Yeah, slow it down. So my dad says, slow it down. All right, Andrew. Are you pinned?
Yeah, we are. Can I use the mic as well?
Yeah, you got, that's
Okay.
perfect.
My name is Andrew, and this is my daughter, Stella. And Stella has graciously agreed to read the piece that I wrote tonight for this event.
Yay! What?
Go ahead.
My father was denim.
Hold on real quick. Can everyone hear her?
No, give her the microphone. There's two mics, they're tapped into different things. The one in your hand has to go in her hand.
Okay. Here you go, honey.
My father was denim, made soft by years at the plant, ever sturdy, smoothed over with wear, held up with a brown belt, leather adorned with a metal key holder for the jangle of the keys on a coiled ring. Paired with the wide Wolverine work boots and cotton tartan short shirts, worn over stained white undershirts, V-necks, and hieroglyphed with spaghetti stains, always peeking from his chest a tiny gold chain and a simple crucifix. It had been years since he was the moon, but even if it had been years, the moon had poked from the sky. A funeral in a windswept mausoleum with a crowd clustered around the metal coffin, and the handsome priest with the long, unbroken mustache. My hand rubbing against my mother's black velour jacket as I kneeled back, polyestered knee on the stone behind her, head bent down, eyes closed, whispering amen along with the rest. A bell tolling on cue. A wake with aunts and uncles with thin skins and spidery faces, knowing that they have not much time either, with children snaking around through in somber dresses and smirking faces selling a 7-Up to all comers for $1 a cup, and one drunk cousin doing a toast after toast with the cheap red wine for my dad, turning cup held aloft to tell me stories of the bar my grandfather owned next to the whorehouse. His grandfather owned along the plaza with the spluttering fountain across the street from Union Station. A wake where I'd stumble in and out of conversations, trying to act cheerful and feeling like some songbird had crawled into my ribcage and died. Threading it together, this thing, these days, how much I yearn for the stillness of work, like him always. The warmth of the sun, the cool whisper of the breeze, but the hours today are filled with the memory of my father's hand and his legs as he walked. The hand, a sheer size, giant, thick, and lined, nails cracked, and my hand inside his hand, a boy's, small and delicate. I didn't know where we were going, but I look up at him and I look at my hand, in this, in his, and I forget whatever worries. Filled with a profound and total trust, I am too trespassed to ever know again. Blissfully, I went along toward wherever it was he was plodding, each step a shift of denim. Men and work, or fatherhood and work. My father was a factory worker and my daughter's father is a writer. Fatherhood and writing go together surprisingly well, requiring nothing more tool-like than a standard computer and an internet connection. I can write while my offspring is at school, in bed, or momentarily distracted by my shoulders as an interesting place to sit while I'm hunched over my keyboard, desperately trying to catch the tail of the deadline that just went whooshing by. The more journalistic aspects of my job, actually having to go places to see things, can be a bit of a drag, but one that Stella, my 12-year-old daughter and reluctant punctual collaborator, has come to accept when she must with a roll of her eyes, duplicates of mine, down to the propensity to the role, and a request of payment for her part of the job, which is to be patient for an foreordained time and not to act too noticeably bored. Any violation of the contract on my part, staying too long for example, results in an immediate scowl accompanied by slumped shoulders and a refusal to negotiate any further. Breeding is one of those aspects of life that affects each of us on such a profound level, it's difficult to speak about how it has changed my practice as a writer. Small things are notable, such as denting my workaholicness. It's curtailing my tendency to malinger over long at work-related Feds?
Yeah.
With concomitant open bars.
An increased likelihood of impromptu dance parties, but outlining the bigger changes are a bit trickier. Let's say gravity suddenly shifted, making everyone and everything a little bit lighter. It would likely make the news circuit for a while and make movers and other professional lifters particularly happy. But after the scientists have explained again and again why it happened and all of the potential storylines have been exhausted by newspapers and TV pundits and religious zealots and idle conversationists, how about that gravity? We would accept it, perhaps, with an individual joy of our own, which is to say, even though a slight shift in gravity on Earth literally changes everything in our home planet, after a while, we just adjust. Occasionally, we might think back to the days before gravity changed with wonder and even nostalgia. But we know that everything being lighter is just better on one of those annoyingly and truistically difficult to communicate levels and continue with the practice of everyday life, with appropriate changes to this new state of lightness. We had to explain somehow too. Our children who didn't know what it was like before or how different and somehow better it is now. Anything we say feels a little bit like a lie, or sometimes something so vague that it might as well be. Parenting for me is something like this. I still don't really know what it means to be a man, nevertheless a father. My father was his work, and in many ways so am I. And though I wear jeans like him every day, black ones usually, the only thing my father taught me about being a man was how to shave. However, I learned to be a father from my daughter. She teaches me every day how to be a better one and a better writer too. Though this again is one of those annoyingly truistic things that is difficult to explain. But every day I feel it, this change in gravity.
You want me to read?
My daughter is here now, a better teacher than I could ever hope for in being a man, a father, and a writer. And though I'm not defined by any one of these roles, they still shape me. But as Stella's here now, as my reluctant collaborator again, it is her that I give the final word.
I don't know.
Do you have anything you want to add?
I don't know. I'm really tired.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Stella. Thank you, Andrew. And are we swapping out that
Oh yeah, Stella, you gotta take off.
yeah, this
Oh,
tent
yeah.
going on? What do you guys think of this video? Do you like this video? It's very interesting. What's your name?
My name is Garnet.
Hi, Garnet.
It teaches me how to be patient.
Because it's the same thing over and over again? Yeah. We're going to swap it out because our next reader has a slideshow. This is a video by my crush who I've never met. We talk on the phone for 3 hours every night. I'm serious. Zaron Burnett III. The third. Will you explain the third?
It was my father's name and my grandfather's name.
Yeah.
And it was a made-up name. We took it from the Bible. His parents took it from the Bible and respelled it. And when he went to start school, his teacher taught him to spell his name a different way. He didn't like that, so he changed his name.
Oh, well, yeah, come on up. I have to inform you that you need to be here because the light will catch you and then you'll be properly on film. So Zaron Burnett III is a regular feature writer for Playboy and Medium. He's also written for Vogue, Complex, Teen Vogue, and Mel, and he's going to be sharing a really beautiful personal story that he composed for this event. I'm going to swap it. I'll give you this, and I'm going to get your slideshow up. Can you go there? Do-do-do-do-do-do.
So this is called How Do You Tell a Dead Man That You Love Him?
Can you stand there?
Stand over here?
Yeah, by the table. Full screen.
Our plane landed in Cartagena around 8 o'clock on a hot and sticky night. Stepping out of the airport, I felt like a sweaty foot in a running shoe pounding the pavement in a marathon held in New Orleans. That kind of humid. Before we'd even reached our hotel, our over-friendly cab driver tried to sell us pot, cocaine, and offered us women who'd happily make a private porn with us. He sounded a lot like a sleazy Hollywood producer, which is where we'd come from. As wind rushed in open windows, I felt a bit overwhelmed by the sights and sounds of Colombia. But that was nothing. 3 hours later, I was in my boxers, standing in the living room of our penthouse suite, using broken Spanish to argue with a paranoid sex worker who was fully convinced that there were cameras in the walls. And that's the moment when I knew. I should have said something. Maybe not then, but sometime after that. I think it could have saved his life. My best friend rushed out of his bedroom to check on all the furious noise. He found me half naked, desperately pleading with the angry prostitute as I spit pathetic high school Spanish at her. I sounded like a drunk child who was arguing he was fine to drive home. She'd stolen our contact sheet of everyone we knew in Colombia, and I was scared she'd ruin our film by calling them all that night as she fled our hotel suite. My friend couldn't help himself. It was a hilarious scene, so he had an honest reaction. He exploded into laughter. He always had a great laugh, a big, warm, happy laugh, the kind you'd expect from a cartoon character that everyone loved, or, more accurately, one that everyone loved to watch. I should have told him then, right when I felt it. His laugh let me know everything was okay. I should have told him I loved him, but to his ears that would have sounded hella gay. He wasn't like that. He was an old school guy, the kind who equated love with sex. He was not an easy man to love, yet he was one of the most lovable men I've ever known. He was a man desperate for love. It was a feeling he never got to experience, not from a loving partner. Still, he could never stop himself from wanting it, with every cell of his being. Instead, he paid for it. He would rent love. No wife or girlfriend. My best friend spent his love on sex workers. His logic was simple and sad as the honest hand of the alcoholic reaching for that first drink in the morning. His desire was true like a deathbed confession. It was raw, like the hunger in a starving man's gut. It was unquenchably and spiritually empty, like the hollow cave of a billionaire's heart. To quell his untouchable bodily need, to salve his persistent ache, my best friend paid prostitutes to love him, and they always loved him at an agreed-upon hourly rate. My best friend could easily find women who'd sleep with him. Like a truffle-hunting hog, he could always find sex on Tinder. That was never difficult for him, but it was love he wanted, and it was love he could never locate. Instead, he rented women's bodies just to feel their hearts next to his. He paid sex workers to tell him they loved him. He liked it when they whispered it in his ear. I don't know if that cost extra, but it's the saddest thing I've ever heard. Having recently buried my best friend, I sometimes ask his ghost, if I told you I loved you, would you still be alive today? Standing in that penthouse suite in Cartagena, both of us naked except for our boxers, he tried to calm down the sex worker he'd hired to surprise me as she continued to yell at us. Eventually, the prostitute in his bedroom came out and helped us sort out the situation. Together, we convinced the paranoid sex worker there were no cameras in the walls. Eventually, she stopped yelling and left. That's when I realized this crazy motherfucker was a great love of my life. It was an odd time to recognize it, but it was as obvious as those bulging veins in that sex worker's blood-hot face. And yet, I never told him. The paranoid sex worker was scared of cameras because of the big-ass one in my bedroom. All she knew was we were Americans, so it made sense to her that we'd be making a porno. If you've only met a few Americans in your life, it's a fair assumption to make. We are a nation of amateur porn stars. And technically, she was right. We'd come down to Colombia to shoot a movie, only it was no adult film. Ours was an indie film. It was my friend's idea. He called it the world's first reality film. The concept was simple as cinnamon toast. He'd met a woman online, and he wanted me to document his trip when he finally traveled to meet her. He wanted me to record it when he asked her to marry him. I'd be there to film it all. We called it My Colombian Bride Vacation. It was a truly modern love story, except all of it was a lie. Nothing was true save his desperate need for love. There was no woman he met on the internet. There was no long distance anything. The real reason we flew to Colombia is my friend had read on a sex tourist website that the prostitutes in Colombia were unreal. That's why we flew to Cartagena, to make a fake love story that obscured his true love for sex workers. And buried underneath it all was our genuine love story. To be as nakedly honest as possible, I loved him as much as one man can love another man he doesn't want to fuck. I can easily recall the moment I met this man who'd become a great love of my life. We'd been partners since we met that first day at film school. Fittingly, our friendship began with a lie. I told him I was from Chicago. You see, he was wearing a Chicago White Sox hat, and I took a guess he was from there. I was right. I lied to him because he was at the back of the bus speaking fluent Spanish to a group of foreign exchange business students who'd come to San Francisco from various parts of Spain. The women were some of the most beautiful I'd ever seen. He was making them laugh. So I started talking with him, and then we made those Spanish girls laugh so much that the Spanish guys with them got mad. That was the beginning of our beautiful friendship, born from a horny lie. This is also why it felt so natural for us to make a movie based entirely on a fiction, one that we told everyone we met. We even lied to our friends that he'd actually met a girl online and now we were going down there to film it. We wanted their performances in our reality film to feel real. We didn't trust our friends to lie as well as we did to lie so naturally. We continued to lie to everyone we met in Colombia. Inside our lie, only the two of us knew the truth. Armed with our fictitious circumstances, we asked the Colombians if they could ever love a foreigner. All of them said yes. We even hired a young Colombian woman to pretend to be my best friend's online fiancé. In a twist of fate, or perhaps a credit to how well he lied, he convinced this amateur actress to fall in love with him. When they slept together, she even did as he asked every woman he fucked to do. She whispered in his ear that she loved him as she climaxed. This, too, was another lie. She was yet another woman he was paying to say she loved him. Try as he might, he couldn't believe her, even if, just for that moment, she meant it, because he was still living inside his own lie. Eventually, it was his heart that killed him. Well, that and all the cocaine. He died naked and alone, and I was there to clean up the blood. As I held back tears that eventually came despite all my protests, I had one of the darkest thoughts I've ever known. It was a thought so dark, only he would have laughed at it. As I cleaned up the pool of his blood with my bare hands and a dish sponge, I said to his absence, I swear to God, if you give me HIV from your blood, I will laugh myself to death. And he would have laughed too. Pretty sure only he would have laughed. Truth is, he'd been burnt a few times with STDs, so it wasn't a ridiculous thought to think. He often took stupid risks. They made him feel something. Fucking a sex worker without a condom was one of the ways he liked to feel alive, to feel the woman he was inside. I remember that day he called me from a motel room in Bakersfield. The prostitute was gone, the 8 balls were gone, and there was blood everywhere. It was his. But above all, he was mad he'd woken up alive. So what did we do? We laughed about it. We joked about the maid who'd found him. We wondered what the proper amount was to tip her for cleaning up his blood. He'd left $40. We both thought that wasn't enough. I did tell him how worried I was, how scared I was when he disappeared, and how, just like him, numerous times I'd woken up mad that I was still alive. But I never told him I loved him. I know now I should have. It's all he ever wanted to hear. And my love for him was real. I don't know for sure if telling my friend I loved him would have saved his life, but he told me he needed my help to stay clean. We tried for 3 years, and I know I was his best friend. Together, in the end, we'd managed to get him sober for 6 weeks, which was no easy feat. The last time I saw him alive, we went out to eat, and when he dropped me off, I told him how proud of him I was. I said it in words, and I said it with my eyes. I told him he should be proud of himself too. He said he felt good. We both knew that was a lie. I said nothing. I let him lie, hoping he could live inside it and not relapse again. I should have told him I loved him. It might have saved his life. I don't know, maybe not. At least he would have known an honest love, which is all he ever wanted. Without it, he didn't want to keep waking up alive. Now I lay awake some nights wondering if saying those words he so wanted to hear could have saved his life. I guess I always will. Please do me one favor. Do not wonder the same thing. Tell a man you love him. I don't know, but I think sometimes it could save his life.
All right, I'm gonna do a simultaneous text switcheroo, I guess. Oh, I hate technology. I really loathe it. I think I'm gonna bring Rocket up next. Are you ready? Yeah. Rocket Caleshu is a writer living in Los Angeles. He holds an MFA in creative writing from the California Institute of the Arts, where he was the inaugural Truman Capote Literary Fellow, and he holds a BA in Africana Studies from Brown University. Rocket has recently published in or forthcoming from the New Delta Review and Tammy. He is interested in the critical capacities of poetry and the poetic capacities of prose. Me too. In addition to Whatever, a lyric meditation on masculinity, trans identity, and hormones, he is at work on a book about love co-written with a clown. And as Rocket introduced, I'm going to swap out this so we have a different
Thank you.
visual.
Sure.
The light's best, like right
Okay.
at the table. Let's see, what do you want to look at?
Oh, what are my choices?
See, if I turn it off, it's going to turn blue, so we have to pick. I have to find something.
Okay.
Let's,
Maybe something with like dark-ish tones, so it's not.
I know. Maybe I can just turn it black or change my background black.
You could put it to sleep.
Oh, what?
Turn the brightness down.
No.
No. Not on a projector though.
Does any? Okay. Oh yeah, is this black? Oh no, that's just me. No, I'm not. That's kind of.
Oh, that worked.
It's really bright still. Maybe if I turn flux back on. Or dark room?
Oh, whoa, yeah. I like that. I like that.
Thanks for your patience. I like the bunny.
Do you guys need a quick, does anyone need a quick stretch? Like a shake? No? Okay. Cool. I'm gonna read from a manuscript I'm working on called Whatever. And this is a part I've never read out loud before, so we're gonna see how it goes. It jumps around a little, but I think not in an utterly unintelligible way. Okay. In 2015 in Los Angeles, the Trans Health Clinic is a prominent wing of the well-funded gay center in Hollywood. 4 giant screen TVs play an unerringly gestalt medley of early aughts classics and daytime judge programs to a room full of folks waiting to receive decidedly above average health care. It's not that everyone in there is gay as in happy, but if you use it to judge the efficacy of Obamacare, things look pretty good. One nurse told me that since the Affordable Care Act passed, the waiting room was nearly always full, that the masses of gays and queers and trans folks were showing up for medical and mental health care. Sunshine emoji followed by palm tree emoji, emoji face with sunglasses, emoji of hypodermic needle followed by thumbs up emoji. If you are there like me to secure hormones for the purpose of manipulating your gender presentation, you'll find no shortage of people to tell you that you are in the right place. Everyone seems pumped up on feel-good nonprofit healthcare, dizzy with their desire to provide affirming access to queers. The queens who run the front desk are brusque and straightforward, but also truly sensitive. No one yells out any name into the waiting room that hasn't been approved in advance. If you have no appointment but really need an STI test, they will squeeze you in. Even the butch who case manages me scans my insurance paperwork tenderly. After my first visit, I returned 2 weeks later to be taught to inject myself with testosterone. I regard the vial of hormones resting on the metal cart as if it were going to jump off the table and chase me down the hall if I didn't immediately empty the contents into my bloodstream. You know when you pick something up and it's heavier than you thought it would be? Or when your brain animates an object into a dancing cartoon with bug eyes and wavy stick arms and gloved hands? Something about the vial belayed an eerie sentience. I didn't like how I liked it. There was also the liveness of the syringe, little devil on my shoulder and waiting. Was this medicine? Why did it feel like I was trying to cure a feeling for which there is no cure? The vial and the syringe were almost otherworldly in their materiality. almost. Had I been approaching hormones as a distant part-time experiment, would I be able to take them, let them change me, and not also change if I decided I didn't want them controlling me? Once the so-called experiment was inside me, how would I measure its results? And down the line, how would I ascertain the difference between myself and the experiment? I'd been told by friends that the healthcare providers at the LGBT center would be eager to get me started on a full dose instead of the lower dose cream or an injectable half dose. I should know firmly what I wanted, even as the options of what was possible to want felt extremely obscure. I agreed to a full dose immediately. Despite Dr. Lauren's assurance of ease, my first year on testosterone is one of unadulterated commotion. The little envelopes of stillness on which I had relied disappear. The changes are so multiple and cross so many boundaries of what I thought was stationary about myself that I begin to understand why people document their transitions with such fervor. With aging, the only other reliable experience of an inevitable protracted march through time I have to compare this to, mostly you go along until one day you realize you are regularly hunting down gray hairs on your head with a tweezer under a magnifying light. Your back hurts for no particular reason when you wake up, you can't bounce a dime off your ass anymore, etc. It's like that, except you go along knowing you are wittingly altering your body, but without a clear sense of the rules of engagement.
Oh, terrible.
That's okay.
It's just that blue.
I don't mind. I
like
don't
the
mind
blue?
it. Whatever.
I like that movie blue.
I don't know where to begin in describing the massive changes wrought by the drug, so generally I respond to well-meaning inquiries with, it's fine, whatever. Whatever as in leave me alone, but also please consider this a viable experience. There was relief distinctly among many of my friends and in my community when I started using testosterone and talking about it. Now we had something concrete to discuss with regard to my gender. Now we could highlight changes. Now my transition had an arc. Where before I had been improvising, now I was following something like a score. I was heartily congratulated for my choice, especially by cis people who saw in it a way to be good allies. There was a renewed curiosity on everyone's part. I could allude to it and everyone would be like, say no more in hushed tones. My transformation generated empathy. Here I was, formally bettering my conditions. It put me more squarely into a viable category. It gave a context for my pleasure. It corralled all the et ceteras into one place. T confirmed for me that the space of transition is not one of transcendence. I did not attain a higher consciousness or fulfill a purpose or become my ultimate self. For example, having an orgasm on T turned me into a literal moron. I could suddenly imagine how people asked their partners to make them a sandwich after sex, and it was a frightful feeling. It might appear to an outsider that I had or was having some experience that could be shaded as mystical. I could stand quiet and stewing in the corner of a room at a party, and that somehow was an exalted role to play. Neutral, classic, toxic masculinity is still exactly what it is, no matter who is wearing it. I may not have been able to articulate any of this right away, for nuance felt obliterated by the sheer daylight of T, but an upper hand that I had once been able to ignore was creeping in. What better word to use to describe this state than the emptiest, most vacuous of signifiers, whatever. Once my friend commented that I looked like a little old man as I vigorously scrubbed dried lasagna off a pan in her kitchen, and I was abashed by the comment for weeks. What was wrong with me? Why was I pretending testosterone wasn't a drastic choice to make? Why are queers always having to make drastic choices? Why are our bodies framed as drastic? Sometimes I accidentally winked at people, a tic that would have been fine when I was more legibly female, but was downright despicable on the occasion I passed as a man. I don't know how to extricate these examples of life on testosterone from the logic of value, other than to suggest that they are in fact invaluable. In testosterone, I found myself in the double bind of moving away from femininity and also away from passing. I don't mean to suggest that the more testosterone I take, the more I wish to have my femininity back. Nor have I seen that the sole or even the primary outcome of testosterone is passing or an increased desire to pass, or that I use the drug for the purposes of passing. What I have found is that the internal and affective shifts I experience on hormones are far more compelling and deep than the external changes to my body. My relationship hinges more on how I experience feeling than on how I experience gender. This double bind leaves me in a paradoxical place. What opens before me is a place I don't understand and have no existing vocabulary for. Not even the notion of a spectrum seems able to contain or name this double bind. Instead, a turn to relations and relationality is revealed. The double bind reveals the absence of an absolute. There is no passing as a man to be done. There is no return to femaleness that is possible. Instead, only the continued shifting territory on which we are inextricably made of relation remains. Thank you.
We're gonna have Adrienne up next. There's Adrian. So you gotta give Adrian the, oh yeah, he's on that. And I'm gonna switch this for a second. Yeah. System preferences. How are you, Adrian? I know I need to set it so that it doesn't turn off, you know? I like it too. There's like darkness, desktop and screensaver, fit screen. How do I just make it not ever turn off? Start after never. Wait, yeah. Sick, okay. No. All right. So, Adrienne, how you doing? Good.
Just like low tides of melancholy, just to like fill your Tuesday night, you know?
It is a Tuesday night, isn't it? Adrian Adams is an archivist, event planner, and public speaker from Las Vegas who currently works with Reach LA, a 25-year-old queer nonprofit here in LA. Adrian works on planning their annual Ovenus Ball, which is hosted at 356 South Mission Road, which I've attended 2 years in a row, which has been really fun. That involves programming, supporting Voguers, drag performers, and go-go boys in their performances.
Yeah. Okay, welcome. Hello. Thank you. Thank you. Can you hear me? It's like you can hear me, but I can't hear myself, you know? But just like I'm hearing me, but I'm not listening to myself, you know? Okay, so today, what are we talking about? We're living, we're laughing, we're loving. Are you living, are you laughing, are you loving? Wow. Say that. Say that. So I guess I should introduce myself. Yes, I'm Adrienne. I think, yeah, I come from a community organizing background at Times, meaning I've read 3 Mic articles. That's mic.com. And so with that, I haven't gotten to Teen Vogue yet. I'm not there yet. I'm trying. I feel inspired after our second speaker.
Teen Vogue's pretty on it.
Oh no, like I just haven't started reading it yet. Yeah, like no, it's just more like on a reading comprehension level. Yeah, so it's helpful. So for introduction with community organizing, they set community standards, you know, where you have like that big piece of paper. We're just gonna use this, and we're gonna use this, the phallus. The phallus is right here. It's among us. You know, the phallus is interesting because it's like, it's the injury but the cure but not the cure. But like the cure in the sense of like 80, you know, remember what's that song by The Cure? No, that was a question. What is that song?
I will always love you. Friday I'm in love.
Oh, yes, yes, boys don't cry. And I think it is also Friday. I'm ambivalent about you. I'm not sure. I didn't get the lyrics. And so with introduction, I think if you know me, you can call me Adrian. If you don't know me, just call me faggot. I really feel like it'll just make me feel at home. It'll just kind of make me feel like I'm back in 9th grade, you know, with my PE teacher, you know, at a parent-teacher conference. But also with my Uber driver. And I feel like that's where I want to be, you know, with my Uber driver and my 9th grade PE teacher. So today I'm gonna I feel like since it's about masculinity, like I just need to spread myself. Like all of a sudden, like my body's expanding and it's like, this space is not enough for me. Like I really just want like this. Like I want to be next to, but then like spreading. Like I'm pushing in, but pushing out, you know? And so is the rectum a grave? Do you feel like it's a grave? I don't know. And so I don't know, but if that's the case, I've been to many of funerals, you know? And so, spiritually, that's spiritually. So, what am I talking about? Masculinity, manspreading. So I'm supposed to teach you. I think that's what this purpose is. You have nothing, I have everything, masculinity. And so what am I gonna teach you about with comedy? Oh, there's so much to teach about. What would you like? I don't wanna know what you wanna know, actually. So I'm just gonna pick something. Universality. Jerry Seinfeld is all about universality. He's about to have a reboot. Congratulations. Can we get a round of applause? I don't want a round of applause, actually. I'll just do it. So universality, it's all about, the human connection. It's about we don't have the capacity to hold difference, so we all have to be the same. Oh, yes. I feel like I am Moonlight right now. I swear to God, do not fucking change this. No, I want this. I literally, do you remember the poster where it was fucking purple and blue? I'm right here. Oh. No, okay, it's an emotional roller coaster right there. So with universality, it's all about similarities. I just have to tell you things that you already know. I'm speaking to the common denominator. Lowest or highest, that's you to judge. That's how you feel about yourself. I can't dictate that. But it's weird because it's I don't know, let's do math for a second. Universality, but if you multiply that by the 3/5 rule, remember the 3/5? Do you remember when white people said black people were 3/5 a person? So we're multiplying it by that. Sorry, it's history, math. It's kind of integrated subjects, if you will. But then it's weird because I'm part Mexican, so is that 1/4? I don't know. So if I carry the 1, I feel like my work is probably 6/8 universality. I was never really good at PEMDAS. No, I actually was. I'm actually a double Virgo, and so it's that's weird for me to downplay my intelligence. Did you just connect? I saw something right there. Yeah. So, oh my God, Virgos, that's so crazy. Okay, so universality. Okay, so I need to do a case example, but only listen to it for 6/8 of the time. Just tune out otherwise, because you won't be able to understand, so why listen? Okay, so you're with a guy. Yes, the phallus is the injury. It's lesbians don't exist. That's impossible. Universality. And so you're with a guy. You're studying abroad. You're studying abroad in England. Yeah, England. Because you're too scared to learn Spanish. Because you're 4th generation and just assimilation's really fucked you up. And so you're just scared to learn Spanish. So you just take a year of German and then 3 years of French in high school. And so, okay, so you're with this guy. Back to keep me on track, please. Keep me on track. And so you're doing that, and then you're making out, you're about to get to rimming, but you're not there yet. You're you want to be there, but it's a lead up, it's plot development. It's just standard comedy. And so you're doing that, and then he's this mass top. He's Turkish. And I'm saying you because this is second person. Basic literary devices, you. Universality, I'm bringing you in. Because this is what you've experienced. And he just pins you down, and you're normal. And then he says, and he screams at you, and you don't know what he's gonna say, and he's you're my slave, you're my slave. And it takes you about 6 more weeks to realize he might not be the one. But this is you. I'm just trying to relate to you. I don't understand your experience, but I'm trying to empathize. But do you see what I did there? I just revealed a lot about myself. How are we doing on time? Are we 2 minutes? I don't know.
2 more minutes.
Okay, let's do 2. I don't know. And so we're doing 2 more minutes. Okay, so do you see what I did right there, though? I gave you all the power. You know so much about you. You know so much about you, not me. You know so much about you, but I have nothing. What am I doing here? I have all this space, but I have nothing. We haven't gotten to the point in the set where you're my property, which just feels really weird. Masculinity, the theme that Fiona chose. So I feel like I have no power. I just feel like if someone could volunteer and just go to my house in Highland Park, I know, complicated. And so, but just go there and just preheat the oven to 350 and let's just do a regular old Sylvia Plath. I don't know, I'm holding the phallus because I don't know what to do right now because you have the power. Okay, so how can I get the power? This will be my final thing, I promise, because we have about like, I don't know, 2 minutes left. But we had 2 minutes ago, you know? And so with that, I just feel like, okay, just scream out a movie. Like, don't scream at me, just scream out a movie. I need one movie.
Call Me By Your Name. Oh.
Okay, I've seen it, that won't work. Wayne's World, thank you. Okay, I need one popular culture figure. Can be a politician. Nope, I don't want to do boring. Too obvious, okay. What was that? Too obvious. Yes, Steven fucking Seagal. Okay, so Wayne's World is about Steven Seagal's journey of self-discovery. And he is really just trying to get into Wayne Newton's psyche. No, wait. No, it's actually set at Wayne University, where he's trying to get into, just really understand how, you know, the institution of the university has really just shifted, you know, and just trying to really get down to sort of this rise in adjunct professors, you know, who really don't have, you know, it's set now, but it's also set then, you know. It's you know, the time specificity, you know, time is so elastic. And so, yeah, Steven Seagal, he's going through this process of self-discovery. He's at Wayne University, but it's not filmed there, which is so weird. You know, the politics of production. I wonder what Steven Seagal thinks about Black Panther. But anyway, that's for another time. I'm really grateful for having this time with you. I haven't learned a lot because masculinity prevents me from hearing you, you know, listening full circle. That's the thing. You know, I feel like I've given my all. So I'm just gonna recharge because like you all were such a great audience, and it's like on one hand, thank you, but also like fuck you, you know, because like I now crave attention. You know, like I will die, like I have attention deficit now, but like not, but like just I crave it so much, you know, attention deficit. I think that's what it means. So I guess in closing, I saw my therapist today, and I think she's right about you. Thanks. Wait, is someone taking
Thank you, Adrian. Adrian, do you want to come join us in Pillow Talk sometime? Do you know this? We launched a new series where we take
what am I
over the
doing with it?
penthouse suite and talk about sex.
Okay, cool.
We'll have Adrian in. So we're going to hear from Kyle next. Kyle Thomas Hinton is a writer and poet based in Los Angeles. His writing has been published by AQNB, Rhizome Station, and Kim ? Does the title of Kim have a question mark?
It does, yeah. It's like this
I was
weird-
like, is this a typo?
No, it's like this weird Latvian guy.
Latvian?
Yeah.
That's cool. Here you are.
Oh, thank you. Hi. So I wanted to provide some really brief, albeit rudimentary, context for the poem I'm going to read, just so it's not some abstracted language that exists without index. This is really informed by Denise Ferrer de Silva's work on sovereignty and self-determination. In the 16th century, we see sovereignty and self-possession invented to sort of sort whiteness and as like this human subject, to sort it from Europe's others, to use their terminology. And so we can think of gender and sexuality as being concomitant to something that generates humanity, to reiterate this subject-object distinction. And this isn't titled. The rift is what occasions transcendence. There's the one and then the two. In the secular expanse of the rift, we find invention, jump the chasm, stitch and gauze up the deiscence, and turn blind to haptics. The rift's impossibility to be named is both its dereliction and its opulence. After the strike of the axe named I, consider the earth and heaven, the politeness of the sorrowful mother at the crucifixion, sustained by a worldly underside, the black hole's larynx that is always the human's contraband. A gory individuation that can heal itself, blood being non-theological or theology's absence, universal blood-haver in the animated ground of transfusion's finitude, seated next to the scabs wrought by categories, an interplay of stillness and flagellation that can't describe itself. Stillness is a kind of turbulence, personhood's recrudescence that struts within the frame, makes us move and remove, enervated with the encounter that hemorrhages when the gift is and is captured by its giver. Daughter of deafened sonic break is voyeur of the repetition, the nomos of the poem's blurred contours, more recumbent posings to a kneel at the altar. The rectum is a grave sculpted from transparent corpse and punctures stolen land, not a zero but the one and then the two, a concerto of broken bones remedied in the Matthews infirmary. The orchestra maintains precise and exact rhythm, its terrible harmony, the interdiction of some contortion that would storm the composer, his arms flail in an aftermath that is never actually after. Left in the wreckage of the mathematical, the diminuendo betrays the compass, the pause between notes when constellations evade the telescope's eye and can name themselves. A wristwatch the size of some knowable world, the second-hand tick, a choreography mired in longitude and latitude, its mechanics a militia for the kingdom of the symbolic. An arcane grammar stained with mud, the sharp corroding metal severs the tightrope of possession. Exteriority made of pliable clay, strangled in front of the battalion of lack and plentitude to deaden the sound of what gender is not. To be in debt is sacramental. To lay in Virginia's grass is to be a body that reproduces the regime of that body's being body. To grind one's teeth during sleep is a blissed sovereign state. Mapplethorpe beheading other men in the 500-year scopic odyssey when image turns to abscission, intimacy with the no thing, the zero and the one, an imagined transgression that flattens then annihilates, the coroner's aphasia trying to speak to the rift. Empirical procedure when the forms are visible and call themselves necessity, their pulses steady before the rapture's fugue state. What if it turns out we are formed not in the likeness of the rifted God, but rather the blurry entanglement of salvation's outer-ambulatory impropriety, to not oppose gender, but to fail gender entirely and inhabit that failure's unholy disequilibrium. Thank you.
Thank you, Kyle. Our last reader is Cade. I encourage you all to hang out. There's a fire pit downstairs. That's why I will be borrowing someone's cigarette. Cade is a multimedia and performance artist based in Los Angeles. He's from Brazil. He's an ex-glamour model and was recommended to me by 3 different people when I announced I was working on a lineup on Masculinity. Cade's going to tell you a bit about his life, journey, what he's doing.
Hi, thanks for coming. I'm Cade, and I identify as transmasculine. I don't consider myself to be a man, but I am a body who performs a historical attitude known as masculinity. Masculinity is fairly new to me. I have only been identifying this way for about 5 months. My transition comes with shock and skepticism from my friends, family, and thousands of strangers on social media. This is because there was a time when I made my entire living out of performing a hyper-feminine character. I was marketed as a Brazilian bombshell. I was a glamour model. I had fake tits that had been implanted into my chest by my own plastic surgeon father back in Brazil. My work consisted of twerking or holding a glass of champagne in music videos for artists like Lil Jon, Chris Brown, or Nicki Minaj. Sometimes I would stand next to a sports car at the Staples Center in high heels for 8 hours. I was on the cover of several men's magazines, including Spicy Magazine, tagline, "The world's sexiest Latinas." Someone emailed me to tell me they used to look at this every day in jail. I did many, many photo shoots for lonely men with amateur photography skills who just wanted to get some shots for their portfolio, celebrating the female figure. What began as a sexy, liberating exercise in unveiling my own femininity transmuted into a stale, miserable task. It was not about my sexuality. It was about what straight men are made to think they desire by people who have the means to create and promote images, but lack complexity or innovation in their approach to sexuality. There was nothing I could do to eliminate those pictures of myself pretending to be playing tennis in high heels and a bikini from thousands of Tumblr blogs. But there was something I could do to reinvent myself. Perhaps I could explore a new gender. What about masculinity? It can't be that hard. After all, according to the great Judith Butler, gender is nothing but a performance that gets renewed and revised through time. First, I read Rape, an essay written by the noise musician and Satanist Boyd Rice, where he waxes poetic about how men have been historically superior, based on biological truths associated with testosterone. I cannot say that I love this essay, but it did spark a flame of curiosity. What must it be like to have an abundance of testosterone running through my veins? And that's when I was introduced to the book Testo Junkie, where the transmasculine author Paul Preciado dedicates a short period of life to taking testosterone. The book builds out a seductive frame for thinking about what the biopolitical experience might mean. I'm going to read to you an excerpt from Testo Junkie. This chapter is called The Enemy Hormone, Testosterone and Gender Terrorism. The 20th century began with the first attempt to market a patch of testosterone for cis females. In 2004, Procter & Gamble developed Intrinsa, a patch that was to administer 300 micrograms of testosterone a day to cis females as a remedy for a lack of sexual desire. The product was intended for all the consumers of the birth control pill who were now suffering from lower testosterone levels and a flattened sex drive. Yes, if you're taking the pill, you're probably not having a great sex life. An article published in the New York Times denounced the political character of this medical decision and pointed out the pressure that could be exerted in the many conservative members of the U.S. Food and Drug Administration. The FDA denied permission to market this product, claiming that despite the promising result of this substance in improving the sex lives of patients, its use does not seem to be justified. The FDA characterized testosterone for women as a lifestyle drug, something like ecstasy or poppers. This book teased and accelerated my desire to biohack my gender. Initially, I had a friend use Bitcoin to get me some testosterone off the dark web. We injected it together. He's a cis male, but I guess he wanted to get swole. I was on it for a month and having orgasms of a newfound hue. My skin started to gain a rugged texture, and there was an increasing raspiness to my voice. If I didn't accept coming out as transgender, I'd have to admit that I am addicted to testosterone. Given my adopted interest in performing masculinity, it seemed effective for me to label myself as transgender and let the fine staff at the Los Angeles LGBT Center believe that they could offer a cure for my gender identity disorder, all of which has been covered by my insurance. Ironically, on the day I decided I was going to transition, the person who gave me the book Testo Junkie broke up with me during my lunch break. In a testomaniacal rampage, I went home and packed all my remaining lace underwear, fishnets, and a pair of patent leather high heels into a large black trash bag. I ordered a pack of 12 Calvin Klein black men's undergarments off of Amazon. The next morning before work, I looked in the mirror, shaved my head, and said, I am not a she. From then on, my radical urge to become masculine only increased in potency. I made a list. Cade must get his tits cut out. Cade must legally change his name and gender. Cade shall perform curated masculinity. Cade shall revise his dance moves to resemble Sam Rockwell's. Cade shall reinvent his mannerisms, the effect in which he speaks. Cade shall assertively merge left into a busy boulevard. Cade shall learn directions. Cade shall never fall in love. I had always adored Oscar Wilde's character, Dorian Gray, as a teenager. What a role model was Dorian, the strapping, queer, hedonistic aristocrat swooning the hearts of his sexual associates only to shatter them in sadistic masculine glory, looking like an angel all along. But the Dorian phenomenon must occupy a masculine body. A masculine body, even an objectifiable one, holds power, privilege, and effect the way a feminine body does not. Cade shall become Dorian. Cade masturbates his clitocock to every new hair that appears on his upper lip. The syringe needle breeds testosterone into a female body that has cluttered the internet with redundant heteronormative garbage. A few months go by, and I become severely alienated from friends, family, and sexual partners. I lost 5,000 followers on social media. The ones who remained curious were accusing me of roid rage. They had followed a Brazilian bombshell who was now failing to deliver boners. I was covered in acne, had not had sex with another human in 2 months, was scared, maniacal, and still performing a twisted interpretation of whatever I was calling curated masculinity, but the 2 friends I had left were calling it toxic masculinity. I realized I was not becoming Dorian. I was more like the accelerated, hysterical, cartoonish parody of masculinity enacted by Jim Carrey in the movie The Mask. I had idolized masculinity. I had attempted to reproduce masculinity, and I had failed, for I was not passing, neither was I desirable. I had self-destructed, and I had been undeniably bold. I forced everyone in my life to think critically about the power and illusion of gender. I sparked curiosity around experimenting with hormones. I created chaos, and I innovated. I learned that masculinity does not always come with privilege. It can be vulnerable and challenging. When I presented as a feminine icon, I was always welcome. I was a commodity. I had 10 bonus points. I did not have to ask. I was offered. When I present as masculine, I am a threat. I'm unnecessary. I have 10 negative points until I can prove I'm worthy, either by making someone laugh or intimidating them with intellectual jargon, or perhaps paying a sensitive compliment, or money. You could say that my recent theories on gender are products of transgender humiliation and testomania, but they've got potential. Are we really going to change all the history books that refer to humans as men or he to become gender neutral? Are we deconstructing patriarchy by labeling most cultural events as safe spaces for femme-identified artists? What if by attempting to reproduce the aristocratic cis men and failing, we show him to himself, much like Dorian when he sees his own portrait? Trans women love this one. What if we all hijacked male pronouns, making him the new gender neutral? Cis men would become lost in a sea of xenomasculine monsters alike. Thank you. My name is Cade. My pronouns are he, him, and so are yours.
Thank you, Cade. Thank you, everyone, for coming. I don't think I have anything to say. I had one to say. I was down there, but now I have wine flash. Oh, if you want to know my email list, please come say hi. That's the only way I really know how to reach people. Oh, and if anyone wants to DJ, we have to provide a DJ tonight, so I just have a link up for the whole system, and so we'll probably do a really good job, actually. So please celebrate their music tonight. Or you're going to listen to Lana Del Rey all night, and that's really tragic. Okay, thank you.
About stuff in the ground if you want to mix it. My business partner is Gary Miller. I don't know if you know him. Oh my God, thank you so much for the opportunity. Thank you. I'm like very grateful and honored. Yes, please.
Oh, I gotta get to that.
Yes.
Are you in a rush?
A little bit.
Okay. I have to go to some updates.